I gave all of you a whole write out. It's not that I'm really going to be reading it. Uh, it is for you to go. If I miss something as you're reading it, you will find out anything that is there. We hear many people each time talking that my philosophy of this. You hear that a lot. My philosophy on homosexuality is this. My philosophy of uh, life all of a sudden. And sometimes I listen to the people when they are saying my philosophy of this, and their philosophy is always messed up sometimes. And that's why we have all the craziness of the thing. What they mean by my philosophy of life is not necessarily philosophy of life. It's basically my opinion on this is. And so I don't want to talk about the opinion of ministry on what to do. But it is more of what is, like in the body, what is the DNA that we have. And the DNA determines what actually function, what part each part of the body does so that the body functions together. That's what identifies me as Cleo versus even my children. They might have part of me, but they're not me. Because my son, my daughter, if we go do a DNA test, they will find they're connected to me. However, they are unique. And the church is exactly that. When we have the broader church with the great commission that we do have, but what makes Epiphany, Epiphany? What makes three streams, three stream? What makes Mission Day, Mission Day? That's when this comes in. And if we don't have that, the problem is that you will be trying to think you are doing ministry, and yet you will always be in trouble. And for me, what has helped me is that I have to revisit back and forth this philosophy of ministry that when I thought I wanted to get into leading Epiphany, when we started planting Epiphany, those are things that I question myself. What do we want to do? And what will make us know why we are doing what we want to do? Because the Great Commission is to everyone. But what is it that is? So in it, I put that in bold there, simply stated, your philosophy of ministry describes the why you do what you do. It's because everyone will do what Jesus commanded us. But how do you basically do it in the context of your own unique parish? So I will just call your attention to that bold paragraph in the very first beginning. It said a philosophy of ministry, in essence, outlines the guiding principle and beliefs that shape how a church or ministry functions. It provides a framework for decision making. It does give you the framework for focusing on the core values, because if you don't have that, then what are you doing? What are your core values? Can people in your own church also identify that when we came, these are the core values that we respect in here? Not only just your core values, but it also outlines the priorities for the ministry that you guys get in. This is really leaning into my Catholic background. I was not a diocesan priest, but I was a religious order priest. I was there. And many of you might not know the difference. You only see the Catholics and that they're just the same. But diocesan priests are different from the group I was with. These are missionaries. They have a special charisma. While we all are Catholic priests, but we were different. What distinguishes the Jesuits from the Franciscans and all those? That's where it comes in there, that what are basically the priorities that we will focus on. The Jesuits, it's the education of the youth. We got proclaim the gospel through the education. Of course, people don't love them because they think that we corrupted the whole church around for centuries. But so anyway, but that's what distinguishes the religious orders in the Catholic Church. We call it the special charisma. What is it that while you're still serving Christ, but what is the focus of your ministry that distinguishes you from all the Carmelites and all these other people? Okay. So that's also part of the philosophy of ministry. What distinguishes your parish or your church from all the other churches that can say we are Anglican? But what is the mark that basically puts this is our DNA? And if you can define that, then it makes you lead all the goals that you have. It will define your vision. It will define as well the priorities that you will have for ministry. See, we are very good at defining my vision. We are very good at saying this is the goals, but how do you put those together? Do you just writing it because that's what everyone else has done? Or do you basically come? This is where the difference, the bridge between the theory, the doctrine, and the practice. How do we put it together? How do you act out of the Great Commission that all of us are called to, but how do you contextualize it within your own church? So that's the distinctive part of what we do. And so, in a sense, when you look at all those, some of the core values that you can look at and the beliefs that the doctrine that drives you, for us, for example, the diocese we belong to does not ordain women. We do not agree with homosexuality. We do not even think that there is a ground that you want to come and negotiate on those things. But that's very clearly stated. But how do you live it out in your own particular church? No. And that's, if you know you do not define it, guess what you will find? Confusion. And the confusion does not help any one of us. So we need to make sure that your philosophy of ministry, as we planting, or if you have planted, you revisit that back and forth to see if you are holding to that. Now, I'll use the example of Bishop Seeley here. You started 3 streams, and it has its own philosophy. Are you transplanting the philosophy of 3 stream into Redeemer in New Braunfels? Because every church has its identity. 3 stream will be 3 streams. What will distinguish them from Redeemer when it's the same one who started planting them? It's the cultural part. That each church is within the context of a culture. And that's what all of a sudden the philosophy of the people you have and your church philosophy is shaped by you as the visionary, but also the people who come in. Because the first group of people who Bishop Seeley started with at 3 Street, they're not the same that he's going to have when he gets to Redeemer. And these people, you have to talk to them, and they will. And they all agree on the biblical principle. That's no question. They understand the Great Commission. But how do now we live that here in New Braunfels? Because we are not Redeemer the 3 Streams in San Antonio. And that identity is shaped by the people that come in. All of you know that each time you get a new member in your congregation, your culture changed. That's like when I deal with the secular world, each time I hire another employee, the culture we did have changed. Because this one came and we have to deal with, but how do I do not run away from the philosophy of what we're doing? Because even though the culture might change, but how do I stay faithful to the mission and the vision we have and how we practice ministry in there? Those people might add to something, but they don't change. So if you see in the last paragraph on that section that put in there that every church, whether or not they understand it, or even if it's not clearly articulated, what we do, they have a philosophy of ministry. No, and they have a philosophy of ministry. The problem is if it's not clearly expressed and stated, you have chaos. Because you opened up to the same way you see, we all read the Bible, we can read the same passage, and then the interpretation of it is left to whoever is there, right? That's why you hear that we justify things that we should not justify. The Bible is clear on it, but no. But they didn't mean that at that point. What do you mean they didn't mean that? If I get a commandment that you should love, what is difficult for me to say that God did not tell me to love people? You should forgive. Well, I mean, is it that I forgive everyone? We saw that even the people who were with Jesus, right? They forgive one another. How about this other one? Jesus told them, even your enemy, forgive them, love them. And because we change. And these are normal examples that show you that when a church exists without a well-defined philosophy, people will drag you the wrong way. You will be driven all over the places that Jesus knew what he was telling them. They won't say, well, how about this one? How about this one? He stayed bold with what he was teaching them. That even your enemy, forgive them. There's no problem with that. So you define those for yourself. It is not really anything that we put there, but it has to be exemplified in your daily life. When I mean daily life and when I mean yours, it's the church. You, the leader, and bringing all the people to buy into that. And that's what will define basically your doctrinal beliefs, the mission statement that you can make. It does define as well your core values. For Epiphany, it is basically reduced to mission, community, and faith in what we do. And so we tell people we have a common mission that we do. We do have our mission or philosophy cannot be detached from the scriptures. That's the beginning of everything. And if you can't do that, then you are lost. And I give them my own personal philosophy of ministry, mine, not the one that is for the Epiphany. But I tell them these are the three core values: God, my family, and the community. And which means I listen to what God commands me. And then the first order in that, it's my family. You guys might have it differently, but I will not run to come do a liturgy on Sunday when my child or my wife all of a sudden got sick and I need to take them to the hospital. You know what? If Reggie is not available that day, I will tell them, guys, do a morning service. I'm not being there. And then from there, I have the priority of Epiphany. This is the community that I vow to be at. I will not choose between someone at All Saints calling me when someone at Epiphany also needs me. In that order, I will tell Father Isaac, I'm sorry, I do have someone in my community that is needing me at this moment. So I will not be able to do the opposite. And that's how I explain the ministry that we do. And then from there, we go to the larger community. So that's how I carry my ministry and how I want people to see, let's care for one another in this community, which first, the Epiphany family, and then we go to the others. Because you have seen other people who gripe about Epiphany, and yet they're so in love with another community. I usually will tell them, you are in the wrong community then. Yeah, I do. I tell them, you keep griping here and you love the other one. Why are you still here? It's the same God's church. Just go. But they don't. It said that I stay faithful to my own philosophy of ministry. And so, what are the values of having a philosophy of ministry? One, it does basically give you a roadmap of what you guys will be doing. A map is all over the places. Like this afternoon, we'll explain to people, look, that behind that door, you have the different places. If you want to find your restroom and you're not seeing someone, look at that map. You will find one of them. But even a map can be confusing if the one who made it does not really design it very well. And that's why we as people who are called to minister, who are called to plant a church, like uh, the jingle here is trying to define his own philosophy of ministry in the context of Fredericksburg and the people here. And some of us have done it, but you keep revisiting and maybe revising it. It does basically give us a roadmap for how we can get to the various ministries that we are trying to take into our church. So it provides the goals, it provides the directions, and it also focuses on the what church can be faithfully. One of the things I shared with people, it's what Mother Teresa did. Say, God did not call me to be successful, but to be faithful. Being committed, because then for Mother Teresa, the success that you could see is that in the end, when I stand in front of God, yeah, he will tell me, well done, my servant. You deserve what you do. Or he can say what they say in the gospel, get out, I don't know you. So which one do you want to, at the end? Do you want to basically the time when God can say, yes, well done, my faithful servant? Or do you want to be one of those who thought that I thought I had a crowd of people. They always came to my church. I said your name. And then he's going to tell you, I don't know you. I don't know who you were glorifying, not me. And that's what need to guide our philosophy of ministry. Am I going to be one of the people that will just be shunned at the last that I don't know you? Or will I be recognized faithful servant? You hear that word, faithful. You remain faithful even in the midst of struggles when people try to lead you one way or another. But you did, you remained faithful. Well done, a faithful servant. And when you have a well-established philosophy of ministry that is based on the gospel message, no matter what we do, it should be based on the gospel message. So you start with the Great Commission that leads you into actualizing in practice in your own way of doing things. So it gives the church leaders a unifying framework to access, evaluate, and potentially recalibrate. This is where I wanted us to know. We do not just set it and it's there. I did it 10 years ago. I have my philosophy of ministry, and that's it. No, you need to go back and forth and revisit that. You need to revisit, and that's what tells us now. I think for 10 years we are stagnant. We have been in a common era. Maybe here we can adjust it. That's why you welcome the new members. You welcome those people who question you. They challenge your ministry. That's how we feel like, who are they? They start challenging me. These are the ones who are telling you revisit, recalibrate again your own philosophy because your culture has changed. Your culture has changed. If you're not seeing it, we ourselves, we as the Anglican Church in North America especially, when I first got here in the United States, I did not hear about the Anglican Church. I knew more about the Episcopal Church. Everybody more likely here, you were part of the Episcopal Church. And if the philosophy was stagnant, why would you have left? It's because people went back and looking at what we are doing, how we are actualizing this Great Commission. And all of a sudden, we found out that some of the issues that we accepted were full of heresies. You recalibrated and we moved forward. A new mission came, a new vision came, new goals are being outcast there. And that's what a viable church that is serving the Great Commission does. Reevaluating back and forth and also going back to the beginning to see if we are not falling trap of really deviating. And then you can recalibrate. And that's what basically a mission statement does. That's what the vision will come in, that we looked at what we committed to, and now more likely we have deviated. How can we get back and realign? So you set new goals and you have a new vision for the next time. It's not set for forever. So it's part of our what we do is to see if we are being effective or we are basically deviating from what it is. And your philosophy of ministry will have to do that. So what you need to do, the two dangers that I outlined there that you can have when you're dealing with ministry. It's basically that having a church that comes together as long as we can just be there jumping and praising God and oh my gosh, I love the music there. Other than the music, what else do you love? When the music that you love all of a sudden is a different one, will you still be committed to serving God? Because when we cannot cultivate your view in a clear way, it becomes a problem. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, at least for me, I have seen that many of our ministers all decided now don't even have a vision. They just come and they basically this feel good attitude. And then the confusion gets into your parish. And guess what? Each time you're dealing more with issues that should not be issues. If you did give them a clear vision, you have just people who came together and each one of them finding a little aspect that made them tick and all become excited. But you never told them, this is the vision of this church that we want. This is the vision of this community that we want to have. And so you gathered a bunch of people that have no common philosophy. In a year or two, you start having problems. And usually who get called? They call the bishops. I mean, this one they have more like they can tell you, I don't know how many they have gone to a church. Instead of saying, I came to celebrate, they call them because you have to go put out fires. And that's usually because we do not have a clear vision and that vision is not really communicated. We do not have a philosophy that define what we are doing. So that's the first thing is avoiding not being clear in the message that you want to communicate to your parishioner. There is what we call the syndrome, the being liked syndrome. And that's really something that affects all of us in ministry. We want to be liked. I recall the day I was ordained, and the Archbishop Flores, who was the Archbishop of San Antonio at that time, he looked at me and said, look, you see all these people? They love you, right? And then I was so eager to say, yeah, they love me. That's why they came here. And then he looked and said, well, let me tell you this. As they love you, that's how they will also put you on the cross. See, and I remember that. As they love you, that's how they will put you on the cross. It's because you will bring something and they will not like it because it's against their own way of doing things. So what I want to challenge you, stay bold with the gospel. I did not ordain you here so that you can go be pleasing everyone. Your ordination is to proclaim the gospel and proclaim it boldly, even when people do not agree with you. And so many ministers, they don't do that. So we find allies, not that you should not. We find the people who are like me, people who will just always say, yes, Father, yes, Father. At Epiphany, and actually I'm glad that Father Reggie is here. He can tell you that's not how I operate with people. I tell them that's not me. I'm not looking for people who will just come and bow to me. I'm not Jesus. Go bow to Jesus. And if I'm doing something wrong, make sure that you can speak up. And that's the syndrome of being liked. So I will not touch on the real issue because they might disappear. I might not have people in my pews. But no, that's not what Jesus did. He even overturned the tables. Actually, will come there. He could have said, these guys, they're going to turn against me. But no, he knew what the values were. He stood by them. It's what needs to be part of the philosophy of ministry. Always emulating what Jesus did. He showed compassion when it was needed. He practiced justice when it was needed. He did not fear that actually people will go there. The confusion that you and I have usually, how do I know when to practice justice and when to be compassionate? And it's an ethical dilemma, by the way. Justice versus mercy. Do I overemphasize mercy and then I'm depriving justice to other people? Or do I basically say, well, this is what it is written and I'm not going to be compassionate? And when we look at the gospel, it is actually always having that. This woman has been caught in adultery and our law tells us you need to stone her. But that's the law. They're asking Jesus, it's justice, give it now. It's written there. But his response all of a sudden stunned all the people. The one among you with no sin, cast the first stone. But he did not live there. That's the problem that we don't see. Jesus, after everyone went, what did he do? He didn't tell the woman, just go, they'd go, keep doing that. He seized the opportunity. And he came back with a teaching to the woman. You see what they did? No one cast a stone. I don't either. But here all of a sudden, if you're talking to me, and then there is that but, comes the real message. Go and sin no more. Jesus practiced both. Justice is needed, compassion is there, but I want to make sure that you know where I stand. Sin is sin. I'm not encouraging you to be doing it. And go, don't do that again. We don't do that many times in our churches. So we create this idea of confusion and unclear stuff because we don't have a clear stance for ourselves. So for anyone who is dealing with a philosophy of ministry, make sure that your church is very clear on what they stand for, and it's not anything else that they are trying to struggle with. The other one is that if you see, I basically say, um, if you don't have a clear vision of those things, you're going to spend time in ministry dealing with frivolous discussion that don't even have to take your time. You have to be clear. You need to avoid that one because you're spending too much energy on things that don't even make sense for ministry. Yeah. And the other thing is that all the temptation to take shortcuts because I want to get there fast and everything. I'm glad actually that Jingle, you are here because you have been going through this. At the beginning, you say, I'm going to start here. You found a place and we're going to have people, but then you recalibrate it. See, you came back and said, well, no, I don't think this is going too fast. And I don't have to take shortcuts. And you will see that people who take shortcuts is the people who come and join. They want to join your vision. They want to pursue the goals that we have together. But then they fight you because you try to stay in by emphasizing to them, but this is the philosophy of ministry here. No, I'm not. I came here. And so what you do? All of us actually apparently dream to become bishops. All of us want to be rectors. If we're not bishops, I want to be the rector. I'm not going to be under Mark. He has been keeping me on the one. Did you know that when we went to Mission Day, they had a philosophy of ministry? But everyone, the philosophy is, I'm not going to be under someone. I have to be someone. But you are. You're a servant of God. You're not a servant of a rector. Reggie knows that. I tell me, don't be coming to me. We will serve together. And it's not that you're serving me. If you're doing it because I'm going to prop you somewhere, one day you will be disappointed. Seriously. So these temptations of willing to do irrelevant stuff that have nothing to do with ministry come again with that idea of lack of clarity in your own philosophy of the thing. The second danger that you can look as well that is outlined there is you start downplaying actually the church's culture and its context. There is a gospel for all, but the church in Corinth, the church in Ephesus, the church in Galatia, those were different. They all are standing there preaching the gospel, but the way they actually did it was within the context of the people. Don't we do that when you do an exegesis? You tell people when Paul was writing here, this is what was happening in that community. So why would we actually come in and say we're going to do ministry and forget about the cultural context within which you are administering? And do we have too much an overemphasis? Well, it's the gospel. It has no culture. The gospel has no culture, but the understanding of the gospel does happen within a culture. Because if you are the same way I tell people when I teach, they say, yeah, you told me everything, but all was just plain abstract. How do you practice it in reality? And that's where we struggle because we have people who stay in the abstract world. And sometimes when I dig deeper and you find out that everything they were fighting you for, that's what they do. I did have a brief conversation when I talked about to the clergy group that this idea of notion of being um, uh, absolutist. And someone in there was questioning and said, well, how about this? But then I said, really, if I sit down with you and really question you, I'm going to find that the same thing you're doing it. Because now in the group, you want to fool people. And rather than recognizing that we are sinners of his own redeeming, isn't it that part of our Book of Common Prayer somewhere? A sinner of your own redeeming. But we forget that I was redeemed, but no, I have never sinned, and you guys are the ones sinning. It is within a context that we minister, and your philosophy has to understand who you are ministering to. For me, I have a congregation that is mixed, and my examples are not always to be given from an African perspective. I have a variety. If I'm only telling them stories about Africa, the other people will say, do we exist or not? Right? And that's what we're seeing. We attract people and we're doing ministry. No, don't get me wrong. Here, the only one, you might say that maybe I'm saying this because of Elias. He has a Kenyan congregation. But when I look at all you guys too, you have more likely all Anglo congregation. So it's not, and yet I hear that, well, this African here. I say, how about these Anglos here? So I remind people, and like Epiphany, we're a mixture of people. And I have to be conscious that the context of Epiphany is different from the context at All Saints. And these are the ones that I'm called to minister to. And so I will make sure that I'm not letting them. So do not downplay the cultural aspect and the cultural context of the message we are doing and the ministry we are doing. These people are where Jesus said, I was anointed to set prisoners free. Who are the prisoners in your own congregation? No. It's not the people say, well, we don't have prisoners. Yeah, you do. We are prisoners to sin. And how are your congregations doing this so you can at least free them out of that? I was sent so that actually captives don't feel who is being kept captive. Sometimes to our own ideologies that don't align with the church we belong to. So if you don't do these things and you still struggle, you need to go back and review what are basically the key components of your philosophy of ministry. One, you have to basically have a theological identity. Okay. You have to have that. Who are we? You have to answer that question. We as Epiphany, we as Mission Day, we as the Redeemer, all saints, who are we? You're not going to be the church you used to be in the Episcopal, well, when I was at that church, but you are not now. Who are we here? You need to answer that question. And what do we believe now here? People were in the Episcopal Church. They believed that homosexuality was good. You know, it's that's how people are born. But am I going to continue that, or did we change? What is your understanding of women's ordination? We belong to different dioceses where even in the ACNA, we have different positions on that. But what is it that your church believes in? What are you teaching that is not, because there will be laws. We are in the ACNA. How come in this other church they are having women and we don't? What is happening to this church? You hear those questions. If you do not have a clearly defined ministry, you will get lost and you will not know how to answer them. Okay. And that's also where you have to see what are we all about. Is it about propping myself, or is it about glorifying God in everything that we do? So these are things that you have to look at when you can see. I put that I don't use much of the Bible to put things except when it makes sense to me, and that's part of my philosophy of ministry. So in 1 Peter 2 9 through 10, basically you can find that we are to proclaim the excellencies of Him who called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. That's all I have as a mission, to make sure that I'm doing something to make Jesus shine, not me. And with that, I know that even He Himself, they did not like when He was dealing with people. That's why He ended up on the cross. And you will stay faithful with all those things. So you need to have a mission statement. Usually all of us have them. But how much do we live those mission statements? Or is it because everyone has a mission statement, you got with 2 or 3 people, you put it out there, are you living your own mission statement? And that's part of your philosophy of ministry. You cannot run away from it. The vision is always there. Who is actually the visionary in your church? All of us, we basically looking. You can't say the vestry has to come and do this, but you are, no matter what it is, you are really still, they're looking up to you. You need to lead them, otherwise other people will lead you the wrong way. Your vision is that it starts with you as the church planter, and then you share that with others who buy into that same vision. Otherwise, you will be lost. I mean, secular people know how to do that. They do it in the wrong way, because I have this vision, and I know the way they do it, I'm going to get my friends who support this. And that's how they create governments. I'm pulling all my friends, even when we are in the wrong, but these friends will stand for me. The same when you're establishing your vision, and for you to carry out that vision, you have to have really people who believe in that vision. Not those who are questioning it, because you are the visionary of what we're doing. So you get the people that will help. What basically the vision have to answer those questions: what kind of a church can we become? You see that? It's not what church we are now. The vision is what led us to the next step. What kind of church do we want to become? Today, tomorrow will come. What church do we want to become? And then you continue going. I will emphasize, actually, my life is much based on the philosophy of becoming. The philosophy of becoming, that every day, and you can look at it, we are changed people. We are. What I did yesterday and today, new opportunity present themselves, or new challenges, and I become a different person. You used to be a baby, someone else fed you. You went to everything that mom, dad said, that was God's given word. And then you get into the school, even already in the elementary school. All of a sudden, your children that always say, yes, my mommy, my daddy did this. They start telling you it's not you anymore. But Miss Lulu told me, you know. So what you were telling me as my parents, you wrong. Now my teacher is saying this. That's the word of God that I carry with me. And then they get to the next level. They get into college. Everybody's dumb, stupid. I'm not going to listen to them. Why should I listen to you? I know it. You don't know anything. And then when they are in the 20s and like mid 20s, they start coming back. I know that I messed up. Or I thought you knew it all. But we keep accepting them, and then you were single, you become married, and you used to be married, you become widow. If not, you used to be healthy all the time, and then you sick. You have actually challenges that are there, but also excitement in life. That's the philosophy of becoming. We are not set in stone. We become with new knowledge that we acquire, with new experiences. And so your church should be that way. What church do we want to be? When we end up having those ailments in our life, how do we deal with them? When we are so excited, how do we incorporate in it so we can glorify God? So that's the vision that helps you do that. Is you keep going and asking what type of church we want to be. What would it look like for our church to carry out our God-given mission? You know, how do we will carry that? And see, if you're saying it's not detached from the gospel, we keep going back to the scripture. God is the one who is the top, and they never forget him no matter what you are. And then you have to have a ministry plan. See, because as you answering those questions, what are our plans for the next 5 years? I think Bishop Celia, I talked to him, and he has gone and said, well, I want to go and sit with these people and see. We need to cast, what do you call it, a vision? A 5-year plan. See, I have heard him in the same word, sentence. He talks about a vision and then a 5-year plan. And that's what a church has to do. And that's really the main thing for any philosophy of ministry. You have to define it. You have to be clear. You have to avoid ambiguity. Or like I tell my students, 2 things: avoid obfuscation. Many of us don't speak in a clear way. You want to tell them that you guys are walking toward perdition, but I don't like it. No, I mean, we need to think. You want to tell them you suck, but you're not saying that they suck. But you have to find a way. Obfuscation is not a good thing in our own life. You have to be clear with people. And the other one is that when there is obfuscation, try to actually clarify your thing. And define the terms. And when I have students submitting papers to me, term papers, I tell them, make sure that you are defining your terms, because if not, I will define it, and I may take your whole paper in another direction because you left me with the freedom of defining your terms. And you may end up, maybe you did a great job, but because I'm the one defining your terms, you did not give it to me, and I may end up giving you a failing grade. So to avoid that, define your stuff clearly so that the church members, when they're asking you, you know where you stand. They cannot have a priest leading them when you can tell them, I don't know what it means either. And we hear that. And so this is where I leave you with the challenge for ourselves that go back, look at your philosophy of ministry. And it's different from the church ministry. Mine, like I told you, it is defined by the God first, my family, and the community at large. And I carry that ministry that way. Otherwise, my wife, when she can say that, what a preacher are you when you are not even here? And if she divorces me, guess what? All of you who might have been praising me that, oh, he's out there all the time, you will be the first one to say, what type of a guy that actually leaves his wife for ministry? But yet, when that is not happening, all of you might praise me that he's in all the places. And so I have learned that that my own philosophy is what I explain to people as well, so that our church knows that we carrying out mission, vision, and community in that order. So any questions that you have, I will take them when they will have question answers.